You can hear me looking.
Water.
I feel like I should look at you.
And you do have a water
I have a
bottle
water,
there,
I've got
and
a
you have coffee.
behind there, too, just-
So, yeah.
I'm so addicted to coffee. It's just helpful to have. It's like a security coffee.
Yeah.
Right?
At the very least, we'll keep you well hydrated.
Yeah.
Okay, we can go ahead and go. All right. So, Kirk, can you give us a brief, high-level overview of Spangler Candy Company, how you got started, and what you are today?
Well, I'll try to condense our 114 years down to something that's not going to take too long. It's a little hard to kind of pick out the highlights of our 114 years, but it started with Arthur Spangler. He was my great uncle, and he bought this company called Gold Leaf Baking Powder out of Defiance, Ohio, in a bankruptcy auction for $400 back in 1906. So I looked that up. That's $10,000 in today's dollars. So a fair amount of money. And he got with his two other brothers. One of them was my great-grandfather, and they started making food products. And it turned into making candy products, and here we are 114 years later.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So it's Christmas time, and I read that Spangler makes 2.5 million candy canes every day. And according to my calculator, that's about 600 million per year.
Yeah, that's right. It's Christmas all the time at our factory. In fact, we've already started making candy canes for the Christmas 2021 season. But yeah, we make 2.5 million pretty much every day, 5 days a week. And if I did this calculation, if you take our candy canes and put them end to end, every year they would go around the world twice. So that's how many candy canes that we make.
Well, when we have our candy canes this year, we will certainly think of you.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into the candy cane business?
We started in the 1950s. We actually bought the candy cane equipment from a company called A to Z Candy Cane Company in Detroit, Michigan, and they sold
Good morning and welcome. My name is Marcia Latta. I serve as Vice President for Advancement here at University of Findlay, and we're so delighted that you joined us for our virtual Fridays at Findlay today, featuring Kirk Vashaw, CEO of Spangler Candy Company. We hope that you'll join us for some other upcoming virtual events as well. We have our Oiler Nation Home for the Holidays coming up on December 17th. At 6 p.m., and you can join us and hear from President Fell and her husband Roger as they decorate some holiday cookies, and Roger will tell you how he makes hundreds and hundreds of boxes of peanut brittle every year. We also will hear from Dr. Louis Stolman, Professor of Religion, and Dr. Sean Graves, Associate Professor of Philosophy, as they tell us the history of Christmas and share a lot of insights from a religious thought perspective as we prepare to celebrate this wonderful Christmas holiday. This Sunday is Fun Day Sunday, and that will be featuring Kaleidoscope Christmas. So if you have young children, you'll want to be sure to get on the Mazza Museum website and register for that for Sunday, December 6th. A couple of other upcoming Fridays at Findlay that are scheduled. Next semester, we start on February 26th with Vijay Talwar, a graduate from 1992. He is CEO of Foot Locker Europe, Middle East, and Africa, also does their global e-commerce work. And he will be talking with us about growing your brand through digital experiences. And on Wednesday, April 28th, Dan Sandman will be speaking on characteristics of an effective board member. Dan serves on several corporate and nonprofit boards, including Marathon Petroleum's pipeline company, MPLX. And he is an expert on good governance practices, and I know that he'll be very interesting and informative for all of us. So registration for any of these events can be found by visiting findlay.edu/alumni, findlay.edu/alumni. I want to thank Premier Bank for being the sponsor of this series. We very much appreciate their support. At this time, I'd like to introduce Trenton Miller to give a few reflections.
The equipment we have is proprietary, the design of the equipment to actually make the sachet wrap. And it's just another reason that it's just a very popular product for kids.
Now, was that wrap, did that happen very early on in the process, or was that something over time?
I think it's actually from the I don't know going all the way back to 1924, but I believe since we've had it in the 50s, it's had that very signature, now I took it off. But
Yeah. Well, you have a whole box
the
of
very
these there.
signature wrap. And they're hard to put on, so we've developed that expertise.
Great. So it was your great-grandfather
My great-grandfather was one of the three brothers, yes.
who founded the company, and your fourth generation now, as you explained, which of course is really quite rare. And what do you attribute the successful family dynamics for allowing this to be a multi-generation successful company?
The short answer I tell people is we have about 500 employees. There's only 4 of us now that actually are family members. And so I tell people the secret of a family business is getting the family out. But we're still owned by the Spangler family. And I think the reason that we've been successful and that many family businesses are successful is I think the culture of a corporation is very, very important. It doesn't matter if you're a family business or a public business, but I think culture is one of the most underrated assets that a company has. It's a little easier to have a defined culture when you have a family business because you have people working there that have the same, they grew up in the same environment, they have the same kind of gene pool. I would say our culture is to be very conservative, but also but very practical. I mean, I think those are the 2 words that I would describe, and not that you can't have cultures that are not like that. A lot of your tech companies have cultures that are very, very aggressive, very idealistic, right? Just trying new things all the time. Different cultures work. It just depends on the company, but it helps to have the same people that are kind of thinking alike. So I think culture is really important in that we've had that very practical, conservative culture at Spangler that you can trace back all the way.
You would suggest to a family-owned business that's considering the next generation of leadership?
Well, the joke I've always heard is that the first generation founds it, the second generation grows it, and then the third generation screws it up.
And you've made it to the 4th.
We made it to the 4th. The transitions are very important. It really in any business, but particularly in a family business. And one of the things that they did at Spangler, the second generation realized, because there were 8 children, and now there's about 120 shareholders of Spangler. So the Spangler family, I want to say fortunately, if we had all 120 of them working at Spangler, we would probably not be as successful as we are. Because you need to have, the skill set. You can't, just because you're a family member, you're not necessarily qualified for a particular job. And so the second generation realized, geez, all these kids are coming down the pike, and we can't just let them have a job at the factory because we need the best people we can. So they didn't make an unwritten rule, but it has been followed that if a family member is going to work at the factory, they have to work somewhere else first. Get some experience, find out kind of what they're good at, and then you can be eligible to come and work for the factory. And I think that's been very, 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 very helpful. Like I said, now we only have about 4 people family members that work in the the factory. But I would hope that many of our employees feel like they are family. We have almost 100 of our 500 that have been there longer than 25 years.
Wow.
In fact, we have
impressive.
a woman this month. She's going to retire after 57 years. So since the late 50s or early 60s. Actually, they've done very well this year as people have looked to nostalgic types of candies and brands kind of during COVID, just very comfort. So it's done very well, but they are really an enigma. I mean, they're orange, they're banana flavored, they're in the shape of a peanut. We call them, they're allergen free, so they actually have no peanuts in them, and they're just an odd category, but they've got a very loyal base.
Are there certain regions of the country they do better than others?
In the Midwest and South, I would say that's the
That's circus
but
peanut territory.
Yeah, circus peanut territory. But it's a nationwide product.
Great. So we have students watching today, and when you reflect on your own college education, what one or two classes do you think back on and realize were either most beneficial to your career or most interesting for life?
Well, I went to engineering college, and I think certainly all the technical classes, no matter whether it's chemistry or it's actually a geotechnical engineering class, they all are very good at teaching you how to problem solve and how to think. And those are very helpful life skills, right? There's lots of folks in the engineering world that end up going into business because business in some sense is trying to figure out problems. And so I'd say all my technical classes were certainly very helpful, but the one I actually think about the most is I took a writing about film class, because you had to take a writing class when you were a freshman, and this class was you got to watch movies and then you wrote about them. I said, okay, this sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's a fun
Because I'm an
class.
engineer, and engineers typically don't like reading a lot, right? So so I took this writing about film class, and it's a really good lesson to if you think about making a movie, you have to tell a story, through just a little window, right? The viewer is only getting this little window that the camera is focused on. And you have to fit so much into that the lighting matters, the sound matters, the costumes matter, all the keep it going. That's good for our family, it's good for our community. It's not just about making as much money as you can in any given year. But so to do that, you have to be conservative, right? If you're aggressive, and there's plenty of companies that are very aggressive, but they don't last 100 years, right? And they just have a different way to think about it. But we were excited to finally get Necco wafers at a price that we thought was affordable. So patience is a virtue, and the Spanglers have always been patient. Bit of Honey was another one that we looked at a while ago, and we were able to get it this year. And it's a great match with, I think, kind of our iconic brands. They're not huge brands like a Snickers or a M&M's or something like that, but they're something that fits with our product portfolio pretty well.
So great. So when you reflect on your time period at Spangler's, what would you say if there's an achievement or a decision that you've been most proud of? What would that be?
That's a tough one. I don't know that you can boil it down to maybe a single decision. I hope it's a little bit more about caring for the philosophy of the company and making sure that we are supporting our stakeholders, like I talked about, our employees, our shareholders, obviously, but our community, those things, that we've been balancing those things in the right way. And those are decisions that happen kind of every day. My hope is I can just make it to the next generation. I mean, that is kind of my job in the way that I think. How do we get, 20 years from now, how do we keep our family going? It evolves, right? I'll be gone and there'll be somebody else. And maybe it won't be a family member, but I hope it carries on those kind of family traditions that